in honor of his 3 grandsons, Joshua 5, Alexander 3, and Andrew 1. We'll hear.
Please call the roll.
Mayor Joka.
Here.
Commissioner Larson.
Here.
Commissioner Peck.
Here.
Commissioner Perney.
Here.
Commissioner Vanier.
Here. I'd like to invite everyone to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item on today's agenda is the citizen forum. Time set aside for any citizens who would like to bring a matter to the Commission's agenda that is not on the day's official agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward for that purpose? Seeing none, we will continue on to awards and proclamations.
Item 4.1, the week of February 17th through the 23rd, 2008, as National Engineers Week in the City of Salina. Jason Schleckburn, President of the Smoky Valley Chapter of the Kansas Society of Professional Engineers, will read the proclamation.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. And you actually said my name correctly. I'll give you kudos on that one. My name is Jason Schlickburn, and President of the Smoky Valley Chapter of the Kansas Society of Professional Engineers, just as she had said. So we're 1 week early, just due to the way things fell with President's Day, so we'll kickstart things 1 week early this time. The proclamation reads, whereas engineers have used their scientific and technical knowledge and skills in creative and innovative ways to fulfill society's needs, and whereas engineers face the major technological challenges of our time, from rebuilding towns devastated by natural disasters to designing an information superhighway, and whereas engineers are encouraging our young math and science students to realize the practical power of their knowledge, and whereas we will look more than ever to engineers and their knowledge and skills to meet the challenges of the future. Whereas this year's theme for the event is Engineers Make a World of Difference. Now therefore I, Alan Jilka, Mayor of the City of Salina, Kansas, do hereby proclaim the week of February 17th through February 23rd, 2008 as National Engineers Week in the City of Salina, and I urge all citizens to pay appropriate tribute to the engineers in our community for their contributions to our health, safety, and welfare. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Salina, Kansas, to be affixed this 11th day of February 2008. Signed, Alan Jilka, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there some activities connected with the observance?
Yes. Some things that we typically do every year is we try to sell e-week buttons in order to get everybody promoting e-week. I wanted to give you guys each one of those. Thank you. Promise that you'll wear it next week. One of the other things that we try to do to promote the Engineers Week is to hand out posters at all of the area schools, give those to some community commercial type of places around town. We have them hang those up and try to promote it that way. Saturday, February 23rd is where we will be hosting the chapter math counts out at KSU Salina, and that's where we invite a lot of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students from around the area to participate in some math activities, try to promote math as being a fun activity. And those that do well then also come back and we host the state math counts competition over at the Bicentennial Center on March the 8th. So those are some of the activities that we're doing to help promote the Engineers Week.
Thank you. I do have a signed copy of your proclamation I'd like to give you.
Okay. Thank you.
There are no public items, public hearings, or an item scheduled for a certain time on today's agenda, so we will continue with the consent agenda.
Item 6.1, approve the minutes of February 4th, 2008. Item 6.2, postpone first reading of ordinance number 08-10431, amending Chapter 5, Article 9, Section 25-155 of the Salina Code, pertaining to air guns, air rifles, bows and arrows, slingshots, or BB guns until February 25th, 2008. Item 6.3, resolution number 08-6494, appointing Beth Vinson to the Salina Business Improvement District Number 1 Board of Advisors.
Entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion is to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0. There's no development business today on the agenda, so we will continue with items of administration.
Item 8.1, second reading ordinance number 08-10437, amending Chapter 14 of the Salina Code by adding Section 14-6 pertaining to vehicle rescue service fee.
This item passed on first reading last Monday. I'd entertain any additional public comment if there is any. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd move we adopt ordinance number 08-10437 on second reading.
Second.
The motion is to adopt ordinance 08-10437, which adds a vehicle rescue fee to Salina Code. Will clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Larson?
Aye.
Commissioner Peck?
Aye.
Commissioner Perney?
Aye.
Commissioner Vanier?
Aye.
Mayor Joka?
Aye.
Item 8.2, first reading ordinance number 08-10438, amending Chapter 8, Article 3, Division 3, Section 8-187 of the Salina Code pertaining to classification of trade license.
Mr. Hobby?
Mayor and Commissioners, thank you very much. We have an opportunity this afternoon to update some licensing codes for the city of Salina. Local contractors and the mechanical contracting trade have requested us amend our existing licensing by adding a sheet metal journeyman's license to our present licensing criteria. The sheet metal journeyman would be a person who has tested the proper national-wide testing service. They've also had a trade classification where they'll be working under a journeyman or a master trades in the sheet metal work. The efforts for this license has gone through the Building Advisory Board. It has been through our city staff and reviewed from various cities around the area. The Building Advisory Board now recommends that you pass this ordinance number 08-10438 pertaining to the classification of trade licenses, whereby we will be adding a trade license of sheet metal journeyman to our list of licenses. Mr. Mike Roberts, our building official, is here. He's taken the information to the Building Advisory Board and can answer any of your questions you'd have if you wish to have any.
I did want to ask about their reaction to the recommendation.
The board's reaction to the recommendation?
Or did they agree with the idea? Or?
Oh, absolutely. This is a recommendation from the board.
Okay.
The request was made to them from the mechanical contractors to consider this new classification of license. The board did take the opportunity to review that with stakeholder input from the various trades that were here. This is a precedent-setting change because it might open the door for other intermediate licenses in addition to this sheet metal license. So they did discuss it thoroughly and felt like it was an appropriate step to take at this time, and therefore made the recommendation to you to actually change the code to provide this new license category.
Okay. Additional questions of staff? Thank you very much. I entertain any public comment on the proposed ordinance. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I'd move for adoption of ordinance number 0810439, amending Chapter 8, Article 3, Division 3, Section 8-188 of the Salina Code pertaining to qualifications for examination for skilled trade licensing.
That's the next item.
Oops.
Excuse me.
Make me do it again. Mayor, I would move that we approve ordinance number 0810438, amending Chapter 8, Article 3, Division 3, Section 8187 of the Salina Code pertaining to classification of trade licenses.
Second. Motion is to approve ordinance 08-10438, amending the pertinent sections of Salina Code by adding a new license category for sheet metal journeyman. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0.
Item 8.3, first reading ordinance number 08-10439, amending Chapter 8, Article 3, Division 3, Section 8-187 of the Salina Code pertaining to qualifications for examinations for skilled trade license.
Mr. Hobby?
Thank you. We're going to do a dual process again. Mayor and Commissioners, thank you very much. State statutes have changed in recent years and allowing us to change some opportunities in our own statutes to bring up to date our city codes where a master electrician and a journeyman electrician have had the hours and have the number of years of trade skill service requirement before they can actually take their next level of testing has been reduced over the next few years. The master electrician or a journeyman going into the master's trade was required to have 6 years of experience. They've now reduced that down to 4 years of experience. The same as a journeyman going in, an apprentice going for a journeyman's license was required to have 4 years, and now they're required to have only 2 years of experience. We ask for you to adopt ordinance number 08-10439 that allow us to change the years of experience required by a master and a journeyman electrician prior to testing. The city of Salina is the sponsor for that person taking that test, and so we'd like to change our codes to allow the same number of years of trade experience as what the state statutes require. We'll stand for some questions, and Mr. Roberts is here again if you have any questions for the Building Advisory Board.
Questions of either the staff members?
Is this because you can't find people? I'm curious as to why you're reducing.
What's driving the reduction of the
Right.
number of years of experience? I think that's a large part of it, is that the demand for licensed individuals has gone up, and we just simply can't get that number of individuals with the current or with the previous experience requirements.
Okay. Thank you.
Will this also take effect March 1? This one? The other one I think was going to take effect March 1. Is this license also going to be taking effect March 1?
It would become effective with the effective date. This is first reading today, second reading, and as soon as it's published, it would become effective.
The changes in the contractor licensing took effect in March 1st, 2008
That
from
would,
last year's
Okay.
adoption.
Additional questions of staff? Thank you very much. Any public comment? Commission action?
Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 08-10439, amending Chapter 8, Article 3, Division 3, Section 8-188 of the Salina Code pertaining to qualifications for examination for skilled trade licensing.
Second. One very minor thing. The blue sheet says section...
Mayor Jelka, it should be section 1 or 8.
Or
188.
88.
The blue sheet.
Gotcha. Okay. And we have a second?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
So the motion is to approve ordinance 08-10439, amending the section of Salina Code pertaining to qualifications for examinations for skilled trade licensing. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0.
Item 8.4, Resolution Number 086492, exempting property owned by Bergkamp Incorporated located at 500 East Schilling Road from ad valorem taxation.
Mr. Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Commissioners, in September 2006, Bergkamp Inc. filed an application for a property tax exemption for a planned facility expansion at 500 East Schilling Road. They did so in anticipation of applying for and receiving a building permit for a building addition or expansion in that area. As part of the resolution that was approved, there was an 18-month completion period that would expire in April of this year. They have just now submitted plans for a building permit, so there have been some delays in the process, and it was our recommendation that they request an extension of the time period needed to reach project completion through an amended resolution. So the amended resolution that you have in front of you extends that project completion period to March 1, 2009. That's the next deadline with the Board of Tax Appeals for filing a property tax exemption application with the state. And the only other item that has changed is the legal description of the property has changed because the property's been replatted. The other change that occurred in 2006 was that there was a change in the state law, and that automatically exempts machinery and equipment purchases from property taxes. So that is no longer part of the local property tax exemption process. So this would only be exempting portions of the building and land, and would the exemption for machinery and equipment already exists at the state level. Mr. Bergkamp is here, I believe, if you have questions about his project, but if you wish to grant an extension, the attached resolution should be approved.
Any questions of staff report?
Construction has to be done by March 1 of '09.
Yes.
And do you anticipate, or do Bergkamps anticipate it being done?
The information they gave me was by December of this year, but I might ask Mr. Bergkamp if that date works for him. It's to their advantage. If they don't complete it by March 1 of 2009, then they'll have to wait till 2010 to finalize that, but I'll wait, see what Mr. Bergkamp has to say. His architect indicated December of this year.
Yeah, my name's Scott Bergkamp. Yes, we do anticipate completion in December of this year.
Okay.
Any questions of the applicant while he's at the podium? Thank you very much. Any additional public comment? Commission action?
Mayor, I'd move that resolution number 086492, extending time for property exemption application submitted by Bergkamp Inc. for the facility expansion on East Schilling Road be approved.
Second.
The motion is to grant a time extension for a property tax exemption application submitted by Bergkamp Inc. for facility in East Schilling Road. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0.
Item 8.5, Resolution Number 086493, expressing support for the nomination of the H.D. Lee Company complex at 248 North Santa Fe to the Register of Historic Kansas Places and the National Register of Historic Places.
Mr. Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Commissioners, this comes to you to see if the City Commission would like to make a formal expression of support for the nomination of the H.D. Lee Company complex to the National Register of Historic Places and the Register of Historic Kansas Places. We're talking about buildings complex that's located at the southeast corner of Elm and North Santa Fe, and the Lee Development Group has purchased that complex, and they're proposing to redevelop that as a mixed-use facility which would contain retail and office space and also residential units above the main floor. There's an area between the two buildings that contains some storage area and refrigeration building. That would be removed as part of the redevelopment, and with the idea of creating an open plaza area there. As part of the anticipated financing for the project, the property owner explored the inclusion of the property on the National Register of Historic Places in order to qualify for a rehabilitation project for federal and state tax credits. Currently, there is a 20% federal tax credit and a 25% Kansas tax credit, which, when combined, would enable a property to receive up to 45% of their project costs back in tax credits. The City of Salina is a certified local government, which means we've been delegated authority from the state to conduct historic district and preservation reviews at the local level, as opposed to having it happen at the state office in Topeka. As the primary reviewing body, the Heritage Commission is required to review and provide comments on National Register nominations. That has occurred. There was also a request from the state level to see if the City Commission, or they indicated the chief elected official, wished to also join in that support. It is a factor that they take into account when they look at the eligibility for inclusion. Primarily, the focus of the eligibility has to do with the association of the building with Henry D. Lee and his contributions to the historical development of the city of Salina. And we've summarized a good deal of that in the blue sheet. The other side of the coin that comes with a historic designation for National Register designation is it creates a 500-foot environs area around the circumference of the designated property, and that means that if you are doing new construction or demolition within that 500-foot area, then those types of projects would be reviewed before they went forward. We have notified in 2 different sets of letters the owners of property within 500 feet of the subject property prior to the Heritage Commission having a public hearing on that. The Heritage Commission did hold a hearing. I believe they had 1 property owner attend, as well as the representatives of the Lee Development Group. So this comes to you with a recommendation that the property be determined eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places. And if you are in concurrence with that, the attached resolution would be adopted, and that would be sent to Topeka, to the Board of Review there in Topeka. There is no statutory requirement for the notification, but this designation is not without impacts on neighboring property, and that's why we notified everyone within the 500-foot environs of this property. I think the best thing to do at this point would be to stand for any questions. I don't know if I guess the applicants are here as well, if you have questions for them about the project or the financing of the project.
Questions of staff report? For starters?
The empty lots to the south of that building, if something were to be on those be built on those lots, what kind of restrictions could be put on any type of new construction on those lots?
Probably not, because it is not directly in the sight lines, or there's all the intervening buildings in between. From an architectural standpoint, very little other than the plans would be reviewed because they're being constructed in the environs. But as there's no designation for those properties themselves, other than meeting the zoning and downtown design review guidelines. There shouldn't be anything over and above what would normally take place. There has not. We currently have 500-foot environs around Roosevelt Lincoln, the Masonic Temple, the Stiefel Theater, and other properties, and that really hasn't been anything that has stifled anything in the vicinity of those, since that is a vacant lot and there's intervening buildings. There should be very little impact.
What is a sight line?
A sight line would be that if you were in the building and were looking in a radius, would you see the property out the front of the building?
So then anybody across the street from those buildings then could and
Like
probably would have restrictions put on whatever they wanted to do with their property.
Like the air gas building, where they have a vacant parking lot, and probably there's also a vacant lot south of the Rendezvous Bar. But given that those are vacant,
That's currently a parking lot.
yes.
Yeah, vacant parking lot.
And what we've attempted to do, it's a fairly thick packet, but what we did for the neighboring property owners would sent them out what is labeled as Exhibit E in your packet, and basically any new additions, any major facade alterations, any new construction or any demolition within that environs area would require some form of review, and the more ordinary things that people think of, interior alterations, maintenance, repair, painting, door and window replacement, adding signs or awnings or things of that nature would not be impacted by the creation of the environs. And so what we did was send that out to all the people who own property within 500 feet, so they would have a better understanding of the specific impacts on their property.
How many downtown buildings are currently on the National Register?
In the immediate vicinity, you have the Stiefel Theater, the Masonic Temple, the Roosevelt Lincoln Complex, or Pioneer President's Place, and the H.D. Lee home there at the corner of 7th and Walnut. Those are the ones that come to mind immediately.
Most of some of the other ones are publicly owned, and at least are owned by nonprofits, so they did not rely on the tax credits to accomplish their renovation, like the museum, for
Stiefel
example.
Theater did rely on tax credits for this. They are a tradable commodity, so even if you have not-for-profit status, you can utilize those by finding somebody who needs the tax credits.
But in this case, it's probably a major component of the financial plan for this project.
Yeah, I think that could best be addressed by the development group.
I think you meant the Roosevelt Lincoln School when you're talking about tax credits.
Yes, they also utilized tax credits there. They utilized two sets of tax credits. They used housing tax credits. They also used the historic preservation tax credits for Roosevelt Lincoln, and this, as the Stiefel Theater did also.
Entertain public comment?
I'm Mike Forstall, one of the owners of the Lee Development Group. Good afternoon. Any questions for us? You were asking about the tax credits. Tax credits are an important component of our financing because there is a lot of square footage in this building. There's a lot of renovation that has to go on because this is an old warehouse with a lot of damaged floors, needs a new roof, a lot of tuck pointing. So yes, the tax credits are an important component to finalizing this and making it work for us financially. Any other questions?
And you've you've read the fine print, and you know that for these tax credits, that there is going to be an extra layer of bureaucracy that you're going to have to go through. There's going to be a whole new set of rules you're going to have to abide by. And from what I've seen for 3 years is that everybody agrees to it at the beginning, and then they see what the rules are, and then they come back here and want us to change the rules.
John, I'm not familiar with all that, of course, but we have hired a historical preservationist that is walking us through all that. She is setting us up with these appropriate subs and things that we need to get in line to be able to keep our building historically correct, to be able to utilize those historic tax credits. And we are also applying for FHA financing, and that also has another layer of management and rules you have to go through. So we're fully aware that there's going to be a lot of hoops to jump through, and we know it's going to take at least a year to get this thing going.
Well, I certainly would hope that you won't come back and ask us to change the rules, because if I'm on this commission, I can't speak for the rest of them, but you'll lose.
I don't know what I would ask to have changed, John, other than having it historically declared.
Yeah. Well, I do hope. I think it's a great project, and the tax credits are certainly a very positive incentive, but there are lots and lots and lots of rules, and I hope you know what they are.
Well, we've been researching them. Like I said, we've hired some help, some advice to get us through that point. So.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. I have another question for staff, if we could go back. And I don't think we ever did this, but I was just thinking that in this case, well, in any case where a project's on the historic register, the extra added hoops to jump through are that you have to go through, if you're in downtown, you have to go through both the Design Review Board and the Heritage Commission. Well, they're really looking at largely the same things, although the Heritage Commission theoretically looks in more detail at specifics of the building down to minutia of building materials and style of various components. I was just wondering if we could eliminate the step of going through the Design Review Board so that you would only have to go through the Heritage Commission, and that would serve also as Design Review Board approval on a project of this nature.
Generally, as Mr. Veneer pointed out, the restrictions relating to the historic designation are going to be more strict than anything that the Downtown Design Review Board would have, so it would make more sense if you had one of the groups designated so that they weren't trying to please two boards or have two do that review. But as a general rule, the historic preservation aspects are going to be more strict than the Downtown Design Review.
Would that hold true for any neighboring property owners that want to do any type of rehabilitation to their buildings?
I believe.
Or alterations?
If they were looking at infill construction or additions or those things, I think that would be correct, yes. And what we've tried to do in areas around the Masonic Temple and others where you're looking at demolition or things like that is have an understanding between those two boards that they basically delegate that review to one to the other so that they're not overlapping. We had one situation with the what was the Hospice and Security Savings building across the street from the Masonic Temple, where both bodies were reviewing that, and that didn't work too well. So we're trying to get that agreement up front that they will defer that review to the one who has the bigger responsibility.
Well, this week there's a Design Review Board hearing on demolition of a house in the adjacent to Masonic Temple. Does that also have to go through Heritage Commission?
No, it does not.
Okay, so it's a one step.
It's a one step.
The 500-foot DMZ zone around this building, is that state?
It is a state statute.
Statute?
Yes, they've defined the environs at 500 feet. And so, again, for many many communities, and it's not good public relations for the state, but in some communities this has occurred at the state level without any local knowledge or input. And we told the state that we were going to start with local first and work our way up instead of being informed by them. So that's why we did the notification, but this 500 foot is not adjustable because it's in the state statute at 500 feet.
Commissioners, Phil Klim of Salina Downtown. If you accept the Heritage Commission decision and have one override or partner with the other and say, okay, you take this one, you take that one. That is not something that we wrote into the development incentive program that you approved in January. So we would have to come back to you. Otherwise, you need to make a provision if you allow that to happen so that that overriding decision doesn't disallow somebody from becoming eligible for the development incentive program. Because those guidelines stipulate that it has to be a design review board approved.
Commissioners, to add to that, we may want to go ahead and just look at our ordinances because in a practice that's worked very well, but it might make sense for us to actually build in that deferred authority from one board to the other, just to formalize that, make sure there isn't any question about that in the future. Certainly is something we could do.
Okay, I'd entertain any additional public comment if there is any. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission.
I'd just like to make one other comment. I am not a fan of the Heritage Commission. I think this is a great project and will be very important to downtown Salina. The 500-foot boundary is something I struggle with. I know whether it comes back while I'm still on this commission or who is ever on this commission after us is going to create problems. I think the property owners that are within those areas in some cases can get the short end of the stick because now they are not allowed to use their properties to well, I guess simply they just lose part of their rights to their properties because of this designation, and I don't have an answer for that. Just a general comment.
I would tend to agree somewhat with that comment because I know there have been some times where that has caused problems. Likewise, I'm not exactly sure what to do about it.
Of course, at the same time, they also are getting the benefit of the increased visual aesthetic in their area, more business, more traffic in their area for their business. So I think there's a trade-off there.
Any additional commissioner comment or motion?
I agree with Commissioner Peck. I think that there are some positive offsets as the neighborhood develops, and to be able to say that you have historic buildings on your block is sometimes as valuable as some of the minor headaches with dealing with the details of changes to your building. But at any rate, I especially think that even though I voted against the name change to the Lee District, I really think the Lee District deserves to have the most prominent Lee building properly restored and on the National Register. So I'm pleased to make to make a motion that we adopt resolution number 086493, expressing local support for the nomination of the H.D. Lee Company Complex at 248 North Santa Fe Avenue to the National Register of Historic Places and the Register of Historic Kansas Places.
Second.
Motion is to approve Resolution 08-6493, supporting the nomination of the Lee Company Complex to the Register of Historic Kansas Places and National Register of Historic Places. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0.
Item 8.6, authorize repair of water wells numbers 14 and 15.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Currently, there are 15 wells in our downtown well field, and they were installed between 1929 and 1957, and they range in a depth of 65 to 90 feet. Water well number 14 was installed in 1954. In 1968, minor repairs were made to this well, and since that time, no repairs of any significance have been made. To ensure reliable service from this well, installation of a new well liner, light disinfection to remove bacterial fouling, and installation of a new pump is required at a total cost of $44,980. Water well number 15 was installed in 1957. The pump assembly was removed and a new pump assembly installed in 1976. Well rehabilitation services to remove bacterial fouling was completed in 1986, and in 1999 the pump assembly was removed and a new column assembly and rebuilt bowl was installed. Today this water well is not in operation due to several sections of the oil tube failing. To ensure reliable service from this well, it is anticipated removal of the existing pump and installation of a new pump. A downhole television survey will be done to evaluate the liner and casing, and chemical and mechanical cleaning to remove bacterial fouling will be required at an estimated cost of $56,550. The estimated total of $56,550 for well number 15 will not be exceeded without approval from City Commission. City staff will review and approve Lane Western's recommendations prior to any of the major work being completed. The cost for well number 14 at $44,980 is a confirmed cost. The cost for well number 15 is estimated at this time. The total estimated cost for wells number 14 and 15 is $101,530. A budget allocation of $100,000 for well service and rebuild of wells number 14 and 15 is included in the 2008 capital improvement program under the category of building and facilities. Staff recommends that the City Commission authorize the repair of wells numbers 14 and 15 by Lane Western, Wichita, Kansas, in an amount not to exceed of $101,530. Be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Questions of staff report?
You didn't tell us where these are, but are they close enough to any of the pollution plumes that they might have to be shut down in the near future to prevent drawing pollution into our system?
That was my question. Where exactly are they located?
These wells are located at the north end of our well field, and we would anticipate that if they're in the areas of pollution that they would be used as a portion of the remediation. So these wells will need to remain in service.
Okay.
Their proximity to each other is fairly close?
Yes, and they're in the vicinity of east of here, but they are fairly close to each other, and some of the last few wells drilled.
Additional questions?
Just out of curiosity, these wells are fairly old. How do they rate compared to the other wells that we have? In another year or two, is the same thing going to happen to the other wells, or is this pretty much in?
We have completed a well field evaluation earlier in 2007. These two wells are some of our better producing wells and important to keep in the operation, and we have a plan to work through and modify each well over a duration of time to keep them all in a reliable operation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Entertain any public comment? Commission action?
Mayor, I'd move we authorize the repair. I would move to authorize the repair of water wells number 14 and 15 by Lane Western from Wichita, Kansas, in an amount not to exceed $101,530.
Second.
Motion is to authorize repair of water wells 14 and 15 by Lane Western in an amount not to exceed $101,530. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0. I'm not aware of any other business, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Okay. Fire Chief left.
Carlton.